Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Port Angeles, on another beautiful Thursday evening. It's getting lighter and lighter during our gatherings, which is a lovely thing. Join us in a light in this world. And I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. Take a breath, another one. I am the light. I am the light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. You are a light, you are a light, you are a light in this world. You are a light, you are a light, you are a light in this world. And you shine, and you shine, and you shine so bright. And you shine, and you shine, and you shine so bright. We are a light, we are a light, we are a light in this world. We are a light, we are a light, we are a light in this world. And we shine, and we shine, and we shine so bright. And we shine, and we shine, and we shine so bright. Back to I am. I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. Thank you to Reverend Clancy. Our normal musician Catherine is feeling a little under the weather this evening, so we are sending out good prayers and knowingness for her absolute wholeness in this very moment. We're very grateful for Clancy and her tippy-tapping fingers. So if you're watching this video online, we are thrilled to have you with us. You may find the sound a little bit more clear if you use earbuds, just as a little hint. And please be willing to share our videos with any of your friends. And if you want to find out more about who we are and what we do, you can find out all about us at www.cslpa.org. We've got all of our videos online from past talks. If you go to the Watch and Talks section on the menu on the top, you'll be able to see everything we've done up until now, almost everything. Every once in a while we have a funky thing with a camera and we miss a week. Mostly we've got all of them, so that's pretty good. And if you're in the area, in the Port Angeles or Sequim area, or even Joyce, drive all the way out, come and visit us. We'd love to meet you in person. Our vision. We are an open, safe, creative, and spiritual community where we experience divine love and connection every day. Our mission. Through spiritual, artistic, and social gatherings, we experience and express divine love. Our intentions create ripples of compassion into the world. I invite up Reverend Clancy Blakemore to do our opening reading, our brief time of silence, and our opening prayer.
Nancy Mellon, who was a storyteller and an art therapist, said, "Although setbacks of all kinds may discourage us, the grand old process of storytelling puts us in touch with strengths we may have forgotten, with wisdom that has faded or disappeared, and with hopes that have fallen into darkness." Let's just move into a few moments of quiet and contemplate strengths, wisdom, and hopes. I recognize the one ultimate creative source of all life, that which is eternally in the limitless potential of love, intelligence. It is eternally available and always expressing and manifesting in and through all of its creations, all people, all places, all things, all events. It is all sometimes beyond our recognition, and it is still God in action, God in creation. And so we move into this time together, this gathering of consciousness and love, our intentions and our attentions, and perhaps our commitment to take actions from the inspiration we are sharing, from all that possibility that is occurring in each of our individualized lives in so many forms, the vitality and the energy of that creativity. Sometimes surprising, sometimes expected, all with spirit at work expressing uniquely. I'm so grateful to know that this gathering is held in that consciousness of that limitless creative source. And so we can simply, with that acknowledgement and with the assurance that all is in divine order, in divine timing, say together, and so it is.
So normally we have special music here, but again, our regular musician is not on her best health tonight. So I just would like to do a prayer before we start. I know Reverend Clancy just did a really beautiful prayer, and I want to just steep into that and second that with this deep knowing of the wholeness of everyone that we touch, everyone that is connected with this center and all beings everywhere. There is an inherent wholeness at the heart and the center of each person, of each being. And that divine wholeness is working right here and right now to mend and repair, to rejuvenate and enliven each particular body, each particular heart, each particular mind, each particular soul. I am so grateful to know this in this very moment, to know that the story is not done yet. It is merely in the process of unfolding. And through this unfolding, there is wholeness and perfection right at the very center of it. So I can let go. I can let go of trying to fix or manage or handle. I can step in the divine knowingness that all is in fact well, and simply say, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you. Our talk tonight is Fallible Fables. And I love to look up words. One of my friends says, you're the only person I know who regularly goes to the dictionary to look up the real meaning of a word. Now I can go on, Google and find it out. I don't have to physically go to a book. But I like to find out what the specific definition of words are that I might have been using a lot just as a matter of course, but when I drill down into the real deep meaning of them, they have something unexpected to show us. So the first thing I want to talk about is the word fallible. I like this idea of being fallible, capable of making mistakes or being erroneous, making errors. We are all fallible. We are all capable of making mistakes or making errors or being erroneous. In our philosophy, that's what we call sin. Sin is not this big thing that we are born into, but it is the mistakes in thinking that we can shift and correct and change. This was even more interesting to me. Fable. We kind of think we know what a fable is. We've all heard of Aesop's fables growing up as kids. As a noun, it is a short story, typically with animal characters, with conveying a moral. Animal characters conveying a moral. It's also a verb. And as a verb, it is to tell fictitious tales. So if I am engaging in fable, I am telling a fictitious tale. Now, there may be truth in a fable, and there may be a moral in a fable, but I think as humans, we tell stories about ourselves that are false, that are erroneous, that are mistakes. And we attach to them as if they are true. We forget that they are fallible, that these stories, even if they carry a moral, sometimes I've made up stories about myself, and so the moral is, I'm never going to love again. The moral is something negative. The moral is something that closes us down. And so the moral is, I should not bother to try because I'm a failure anyway. So the moral is, nobody's ever going to love me, so give up. So the moral is, I'm stupid. I think a lot of us carry those fallible fables within us. And they're painful. And they're not the real truth of us. And I think part of the pain or the suffering from them comes because we're battling with the truth of our nature. We have this false belief and then the truth about who we really are, and they're not in alignment. And so we feel uncomfortable, we feel sad, we feel miserable, we feel whatever it is that feels uncomfortable. We get caught in the dark stories of who we think we are. The lies and the false beliefs, the family history and the dynamics, the just plain mistakes, the misguided intentions. Often, I don't have a real belief that most parents start off thinking to themselves, I'm going to abuse my baby. I just don't think that's a common thought. Now there may be some psychopathic people, some people that are, extremely damaged, but I still think that even in the damage, even in the craziness, even in some of the real stories that we might view from the outside and think, well, how could anybody have made those choices? That they're misguided intentions. I think about fundamentalists of every stripe and who raise their children into hatred of the other. And I feel not like it's some malevolent force that's happening, but a misguided intention that is coming out. I vividly remember some friends saying, when we first got pregnant, we were thinking to ourselves, man, we could mess these kids up. We could tell them black was white and white was black and up was down, and the kids wouldn't know. They would have no idea. And especially if you live in a really insular community, you may not get a breadth of experience enough to realize that there's a fable going on that's not the truth. It's not the truth of who you are. It's not the truth of who others are. It's just not the truth. But I think it's just a case of misguided intention. I think most parents raise their kids the best way they know how. Now, we may look at it from the outside and say, well, that's terrible. That's a bad way. That's not a healthy way. But even healthy ways can have weird, unintended effects. When I was growing up, I have extremely loving parents who gave us all these opportunities for creative thinking and for knowing so deeply that we were loved and perfect and awesome people. And still, I made up some story in my head that what I did was good, but I could always improve on it. So, the fable I made up was, if what I did was good, oh, but the next time you do it, maybe try this. I interpreted that and created a fable that what I did was not enough. That I always had to do more than whatever I did before. And I didn't realize that story was going on inside of me till I was a grown-up woman. Till recently. So I carried this fable with me of not enoughness. There was no malice or bad intention in teaching me that was great, and maybe next time here's another way you might think about it, or what else might you do? It was great creative thinking. I've gotten a huge benefit out of that. But some part of me tweaked it to I'm not enough, which is weird, but that's what I did. And I think we all carry something like that. Maybe not all, but many of us carry some fable that we picked up very early, some story we made up in our little kid mind that didn't understand concepts and ideas, and so we attached a fable and a false moral. I always have to do more became my false moral to the story. I always have to be a little more, do a little more. I don't know if that resonates with anybody, but that's what came up for me. I saw an awesome speech on Facebook this week, and it was about some other topics, but the phrase, is this darkness your tomb, or is this darkness the womb, keeps resonating in my head. When we find ourselves in a place of darkness, in a place of confusion, in a place of a fallible fable, where we're making up stories that are closing us down, separating us off from life, from each other, from ourselves, do we take that darkness and are we buried or are we birthed? Are we being in our tomb or are we being in the womb? Safe, cocooned, so that we can birth into something new. What does it feel like when your life story, when your fable doesn't match the story you should have or that you shouldn't have? I remember when I was 35 having this thought, well, I should have a partner, I should have a better job, I should have a house, I should have these things by now in my life. I should have them. Well, why? Why? Because I bought into some fable of society and what society says. That wasn't supposed to be my life. It is very similar to that now, but that wasn't that at 35. It was that at 40 and 45 and beyond. But at 35, I thought, well, you know, I must be a failure because I don't have the things I should have. My life doesn't look the way that it should look. Well, who says? Whose story am I buying into? If my life isn't happening the way I think it's supposed to, whose fault is that? If I'm looking outside of myself, then I'm letting somebody else write my story. If I'm saying, well, it's society's fault, or it's this person's fault, or it's my parents' fault, or it's my job's fault, or it's the economy, or it's the president. If I'm looking outside myself, I'm allowing somebody else to write my story. And I don't want to give that power away anymore. If it's myself, if it's my fault, I'm using the word fault on purpose here, if it's my fault that my life isn't the way I think it should be, am I going to spend time engaging in shame and blame about myself? Or can I gain some mastery around what I truly want, what I truly desire? Can I gain some mastery and control, I don't like that word, but mastery and some facility with my thinking, noticing my beliefs, unearthing my old fables, and making a new story? Can I do that? Our sense of worthiness lies inside of the fables we tell about ourselves. So we have to be willing to dive into the false idea to find the truth of who we really are. We can't gloss over it. We have to be willing to go into the darkness of the womb and examine, what have I believed up until now? And is that something I want to keep holding on to? How is that serving me? I think a lot of us lead a particular life or keep doing some things in our life because we're afraid of disappointing someone. We're afraid that if it doesn't look like X, that so-and-so is going to be disappointed. I need to have this job so my parents will be proud of me. I need to have this kind of life so that society will accept me. Who are we afraid of disappointing if we change our story? If we just radically change our story? Or are we afraid of being disappointed? How many times will we betray ourselves to placate another? How many times will we give up what we truly, in our deepest heart of hearts, desire to placate somebody else, to make someone else happy? I was very guilty of that. And I didn't know it until I did. Oprah says, when you know better, you do better. I like that phrase. It's nice and simple. So part of the process is learning to like ourselves even in the midst of our fallible fable. To learn to like ourselves in our own story. To be the hero of our own story. When we read stories or see dramas on TV or go to the movies, even if the hero is really fallible, makes mistakes and stumbles all the time and is clumsy, we still root for them. We still like them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the protagonist in the story. They would be something else. You know, many protagonists these days are what they call an anti-protagonist. There's somebody that's just really terrible, but for some reason we like them. They're just like us. They make mistakes. They screw up all the time. And yet they keep moving forward. And generally, through the course of the story, we begin to see growth and shift and opening, and then we can like them even more. But there's something that catches us early on. So can we like ourselves in the midst of our messed up story? In the midst of whatever's going on? Ernest Holmes said, "There is no obstruction one cannot dissipate by the power of truth." So we learn to go deeply within ourselves and speak as if there were a presence there that knows. It is most worthwhile to commune with spirit, to sense and to feel it. There is a presence within us that knows, which is why I said earlier, sometimes it feels like we're at war with ourselves, because that strong presence that knows, that it knows, that it knows the real truth of your magnificence is battling some false story. and it feels uncomfortable. When I was a drama teacher, I taught the parts of a story. I did a lot of what we call storyboarding. I helped kids create a short little 1 to 2 to 3 minute presentation. And we talked about that the presentation wants to have a beginning and a middle and an end. And I want to go over these parts because I think they have something to say about us and our story creations. So the beginning of the story lays out a couple of things. In the beginning of the story, we discover who the main character or characters are, and we also discover some of the supporting characters. That generally happens pretty early on. We also find out the setting of the story. Where and when is this story taking place? We find out who the protagonists are, the heroes, and the antagonists are, the people that are challenging them. We also discover what the main conflict or challenge is for the protagonist. That all happens in the beginning of the story. Then we move into the middle. In the middle, and this is interesting, in the middle of the story, the conflict or the challenge becomes bigger, more complicated, and more confusing. It happens in every story. It becomes bigger, more complicated, and more confusing. And somewhere right at the end of the middle part, and just as we're moving to the end of the story, we have the climactic moment, the turning point, or the aha that happens. There's a shift from the conflict or challenge to growth, to awareness and something new. Then the character moves forward. And then the end is, and then what happened? After they got their aha moment, after the shift, the climactic moment, and then what happened? In a lot of fairy tales, and then they lived happily ever after. And that's as much as we get. So we've all internalized this, and then I lived happily ever after. But our lives are long. So what happened next week? Did the prince and princess never have a fight? Did the frog, who turned into a prince, have an appetite for flies for the rest of his life? Who knows? My question is, where in the story do we think we are? We're usually in the middle. We don't necessarily start our story at our physical birth. We might. That might be the beginning. Here's the hero, you. You are the hero of your own story. But in somebody else's story, you're just a supporting character. But in your story, you're the hero. And then here's all the people, your parents or your caregivers, or if you were an orphan, whoever it was that raised you, that sets it up. And your setting is what kind of demographic were you raised in? What was your economic status? It has a lot to do with what happens in the story, right? But what if the beginning is today? What if the beginning of your story is something that happened last week? We can have a new beginning all the time, constantly. Most of us have lived long enough where we've had beginning after beginning after beginning after beginning. We've had something that's happened where we've been reborn into a new awareness, and we can rewrite our story. We can rewrite our own story. Nobody else. We can choose what we want to have happen and how we want it to unfold. And it may not feel like that, but it is absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. So is our dark time, is our time of conflict and challenge, does the character give up? Do they bury themselves in the tomb? Or do they use the conflict in the story to be birthed anew, to grow again? We can do that. 15 or so years ago, I had a vision. I had a vision of a place. And I could see myself each morning getting up and walking a large piece of property. Now, 15 years ago, that was ridiculous. Ridiculous to have that vision. We lived in a small house, regular neighborhood in California, which is a small piece of land. Now, I had plenty of places to walk, but I kept getting this vision that I get up in the morning and I walk around the property for a while, and then I walk to work on the property. This morning, I'm walking the dog on our 7 acres, walking to the mailbox and back, and I almost burst into tears. Because this was my vision. I had no idea how the story of that vision was going to unfold. I had no possible concept of the many twists and turns the story would take along the way to here. And I also know the story is not done yet. I'm going to badly mangle this quote, but from the movie, The Best Marigold Hotel, one of the main characters kept saying, you know, if you think that your story's done or the story isn't working out, the story just isn't done yet. Because all stories have happy endings. All of them do. Maybe not even in this lifetime. Maybe the next. I don't know. But if we think the story's looking like a poop, it's not done yet. The tale isn't over. So we, as our heroes of our own tale, get to keep walking through and see what happens next. Write our own story. Elevate our fallible fable into a fabulous fable. And I looked up fabulous. Fabulous means extraordinary, especially extraordinarily large. Amazingly good, wonderful, and having no basis in reality. Mythical, extraordinary. So fabulous has no basis in reality, and I'm talking small r reality here. The reality that a lot of people live in every day. Well, this is my reality. This is just how it is. Here, at this center, and in this teaching, we believe in a capital R reality, something that is mythical, something that is beyond our comprehension, that is happening all the time. Can we step into that bigger reality, a fabulous reality, an extraordinary reality? Can we become the author of our own story, take charge of what wants to happen next? Stop letting other people be the author of our tale. That's my challenge for you this week. Maybe write down, because fables are always short. They're never like 17 pages. Fables are very short. Maybe go look up on Google Aesop's fables, reread a couple of them. The Tortoise and the Hare is a good one, and The Fox and the Grapes. They're always brief and to the point. So maybe, as a homework assignment this week, write down one of the many fables you've made up about your life and the lie that you told yourself. And so the moral of the story is I stink. You know, whatever you get to get to that. Whatever brought you to that belief that's keeping you closed and separate and apart. And begin to rewrite that story so that it has a different ending. I don't want to say a happy ending, or maybe it's a different middle. Maybe it's never the end. Maybe. That's your homework this week. Change our story. The end. Thank you. Oh, I forgot one nifty quote. I'm going to tell you it right now because I like it. Those who do not have the power over the story that dominates their lives, the power to retell it, rethink it, deconstruct it, joke about it, and change it as times change, truly are powerless because they cannot think new thoughts. Salman Rushdie. I'm going to read that again. Those who do not have the power over the story that dominates their lives, the power to retell it, rethink it, deconstruct it, joke about it, and change it as times change, truly are powerless because they cannot think new thoughts. Think new thoughts. Find those
that have you feel open and connected and alive. Now it's the end. See, I told you it was never the end. It's always the middle. This is our time for, oh, actually, I added something new this week. We have an affirmation in our program. So I invite you to get out your program. We're going to say this little affirmation before we go into our conscious giving time. It's right in the middle of your program. I release old fables and create a new, empowering story. So now it's our time for conscious giving. We participate in this every week. We are part of the flow of life, giving and receiving all that is good and very, very good. And so if you're giving a tangible gift today, I invite you to place it on your heart. If you're giving an intangible gift, you can place that there too. God knows no tangible or intangible. It is all good stuff. So we have an affirmation we say every week. I am open to give. I am open to receive. I am grateful to be in the flow of life through and as needed. Thank you. We have a closing song, All the Good, by Janice Stanfield. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good that I can do. Do that verse again. Here we go. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good that I can do. Last time. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, and the world needs all the good that I can do. Thank you for joining us. Yay! We've got tea and goodies in the other room. We invite you to join us. Thank you for being here tonight. And change your story this week to something that serves you better. Thank you.